Hello and welcome to Eastern Roman history. The short reign of Leo the Khazar has often been considered an epilogue to the reign of Constantine V. Alternatively, he often forms the prologue to Empress Irene and her domination of affairs for the rest of the 8th century. However, Leo IV was a capable monarch in his own right. At the age of 25, when he became emperor, Leo IV's first challenge was to secure the succession. Whereas there had been no doubt that he would succeed his father, Constantine V, there were still his 5 half-brothers who had claimed the throne, the most ambitious of whom was the Caesar Nikephoros. Leo the Khazar also had to secure the succession for his boy, Constantine. The emperor spent the first months of his reign taking steps to secure his and his son's position, as well as check the ambitions of his half-brothers. Leo IV's first act was to seize a secret cache of £500 of gold set aside for his half-brothers, Caesar Nikephoros, Caesar Christopher, and the Nobilissimi. Constantine V had amassed so much money in the treasury, it is said that people started to run short of coins in the wider monetary economy. However, such hyperbole should be treated with appropriate caution, as these words are from Theophanes, whose chronographia is extremely hostile to all of the Isaurian emperors, and is packed with iconophile spin. The money was spent on buying the support of the people of Constantinople, as well as important aristocrats. Leo IV relaxed the prescriptions against iconophiles that his father had instituted, and appointed several iconophiles as bishops. In April 776, during the day of the annual payment of the army, the Strategius soldiers, Tagmata, Senate, and assembled crowd demanded that Constantine, Leo the Khazar's son, be crowned co-emperor to defend his right to the throne. The emperor ordered the army and gathered crowd to take an oath to uphold the rights of his son, Constantine, to succeed his father as emperor after his death. The spontaneous acclamation was clearly orchestrated by Leo IV to secure his son's succession, while excluding his half-brother's claims. He also appointed his youngest half-brother, Eudocimus, as nobilissimus. The concerns of Leo IV over the succession were very real. The Isaurian civil war between Constantine V and Artabasdos, his brother-in-law, had shown that rival dynastic members were potential threats to the throne. 1 month later, Caesar Nikephoros was discovered plotting against the emperor. He had managed to gain the support of some Tagma soldiers and chamberlains. Leo IV had Nikephoros stripped of his title of Caesar and had the rest of the conspirators whipped, tonsured, and exiled to Cherson in the Crimea. Leo IV's iconoclast policy was generally more lenient and conciliatory than Constantine V's. Although the emperor was an iconoclast through and through, he did appoint iconophile monks to some bishoprics, and in February 780 he appointed the neutral Paul of Cyprus as patriarch. Leo's more lenient attitude may have been to distance his regime from that of his father. In 776, the Arabs raided into Anatolia, which pillaged its way to Ankara. They sacked a city in the area and enslaved the men hiding in nearby caves, called Kassin. Leo IV responded with a retaliatory strike against Samosata on the Euphrates River. The city was sacked, and the loot and prisoners taken were brought back to the empire. The Arabs followed up with another annual raid against the frontier. In 777, the Arabs raided the Roman frontier again and returned with loot and slaves. In Bulgaria, Telerik, the Khan of the Bulgars, fled to Constantinople. The Bulgar court was still in crisis after being defeated and humiliated by Constantine V on multiple occasions. The infighting in the Bulgar court had also seen Khan Sabin flee to Constantinople. Leo IV gave Telerik the title of patrician and married him to a cousin of the Empress Irene once he was baptized. In Istria, the papal-appointed bishop Mauritius was overthrown by local Roman loyalists due to a suspicion that he intended to hand the area over to the Frankish king. In 778, the Strategos of Sicily, in alliance with the Lombards of Benevento, defeated a papal army that marched against the Pope's former patrimonial lands in southern Italy. Although the Pope's army was routed, he managed to seize the town of Terracina. It was returned to the Eastern Roman Empire in return for the patrimonial lands. In 778, Leo IV organised a massive expedition against the Caliphate. When he came to the throne, he increased the total number of Tagma and Strategia soldiers on the rosters from 80,000 to 100,000, mobilising every eastern army, including Thracion, Armeniacon, Anatolicon, Boucalerion, Opsicion, and Tagmata. Leo IV placed the army under the command of Michael Lacanadrakon and the other strategoi of these armies. The Arab historian al-Baladhuri says there were 80,000 troops. Theophanes numbers 100,000 men, and Gewand, the Armenian historian, states that there are over 150,000 men in Michael Lacanadrakon's army. Together, these numbers suggest that this was a massive force under Michael Lacanadrakon's command. Lacanadrakon marched the army to Germaniacia, the ancestral home of the Isaurian dynasty, and besieged it. The Abbasid governor of the city managed to bribe Lacanadrakon into forestalling his attack. Instead, the strategos devastated the local countryside and captured Jacobite Christians. The Arab commander, Thumama al-Walid, led the troops that had been assembled for the annual jihad raid against the Eastern Roman army. Arriving in Debik, he sent a large detachment against Lacanadrakon. The Arab vanguard was annihilated in the subsequent battle, with 5 emirs being killed, along with 2,000 to 6,000 men. The campaign was such a success that Lacanadrakon and his fellow strategoi were given a triumph in Constantinople upon their return. The Jacobite prisoners they had taken were resettled in Thrace, following the policy of his father Constantine V. In 779, the Abbasid Caliphate sent a massive force to invade Anatolia. They marched as far as Dorylaeon, pillaging as they went. Leo IV issued orders to the strategoi that they were not to engage the enemy in battle. Instead, they were to pick 3,000 of their best soldiers and shadow the Arabs. Their task was to harry the Arabs to prevent them from spreading out and devastating the Eastern Roman heartlands. They were also to scorch the earth to deprive the Arabs of supplies for their horses and men. This strategy worked as the Arab invaders had to withdraw once they spent 15 days at Dorylaeon due to a lack of supplies. The Arab army tried to besiege Amorion, but turned back after a siege of 3 months because their army was too weak from hunger and the city itself was well fortified and garrisoned. Another Arab invasion of 50,000 men was sent against Armeniacon the following year. The army was divided into 2 columns of troops. The first column captured the fortress of Semaulos. The population was removed and resettled in the Caliphate. The second column fell afoul of an army led by Michael Lacanadrakon and was forced to retreat. In 780, Leo IV made a great gesture towards the iconophile heretics of his empire by appointing a known iconophile as patriarch. 2 weeks after the consecration of the patriarch Paul of Cyprus, Leo the Khazar found out that important palace chamberlains were venerating icons. George Kedronos and Pseudo-Simeon in their chronicles give a more detailed account of the affair than Theophanes. George Kedronos, Compendium of History. In the midweek of Lent, he, Leo IV, found in the pillow of his wife Irene 2 icons. Having beheld them and made an investigation, he discovered that the papias of the palace and some others of the primiceri had brought them. He subjected them to many tortures and punishments. As for his wife Irene, he rebuked her severely and set her at naught, saying, "Was this what you swore to my father the emperor upon the fearsome and pure mysteries of our faith?" She affirmed that she had not seen them, the icons. He spurned her and had no more marital relations with her. The chamberlains were flogged and forced to become monks. Theophanes the Publicarius and Parakoimomenos died in prison. It is speculated that a subsequent saint's life for this martyr provided Kedronos and Pseudo-Simeon with their information. Leo IV did not live long enough to reconcile with his wife. On the 8th of September 780, Leo the Khazar died. The account in Theophanes says that Leo the Khazar developed a violent fever and boils on his head after wearing the votive crown of Emperor Maurice in St. Sophia. Theophanes' account of his death is clearly a spurious piece of propaganda. It was put about by Irene after her husband's death to deflect blame from her. It was a type of justice for this persecutor of the iconophiles. Scholars have struggled to uncover the mystery of Leo IV's death. John Bury speculated that Leo the Khazar had consumption or tuberculosis when he became emperor and died from that disease. However, there does not seem to be any proper evidence to suggest he did have such a disease and was otherwise fighting fit for most of his 5-year reign. Warren Treadgold has argued that Leo may have been murdered by the remaining iconophile chamberlains of Empress Irene with or without her blessing. The coincidence of his death months after his confrontation with his wife may be more than a coincidence. However, just because Irene was ruthless enough to authorize the blinding of her own son, we should be hesitant to assume her guilt over the death of her husband based on circumstantial evidence. Another reading of the circumstances might simply be that Leo IV contracting a crushing disease and died very swiftly from it. The rapidity of his death months after an imperial scandal would naturally throw suspicion on those involved in that scandal. By poison or disease, Leo IV had been quite a successful emperor. Bulgaria was still in turmoil. The wars between the Arabs had seen successes on both sides, and Leo's Fabian tactics had been effective at mitigating the destruction of large Islamic armies. The succession had been secured for his son, and the ambitions of his half-brothers were neutralised. The last of the 8th century iconoclast emperors, Leo IV's reign was not very remarkable, but the Khazar demonstrated that he was a capable leader, adept at politics, and, had he lived longer, may have been a worthy successor to his 2 illustrious predecessors. Please do remember to like and subscribe. If you're interested, please watch my other videos about the Isaurian emperors, and this has been Eastern Roman History.